Was there a point where you started to see the light at the end of the tunnel?
Not on the Facebook brand.
I think you were asked by a guy you idolized for a long time, Bill Gates, and to be the lead independent director for 5 years. And, I know you've long loved Gates. You even went to his, I think, Stanford building opening back in the day. How about the most interesting time you ever had with Bill?
Gosh, there have been many things both in the initial phase of Microsoft and then since then on philanthropy. So he gets nowadays very jazzed up around curing diseases. And so I've been trying to learn how he thinks about that. And, polio is one that they've worked very hard on, which we're on the edge of eradication on a global basis. But the last 2 to 5 years have been really hard. There's still some in Pakistan, still some in Nigeria.
Like, what sorts of questions will you throw his way?
Well, he's building the team. What gets you excited about this? I would call it, an intellectual discussion about his approach, because I'm trying to think through, how does that change how I think about education? I'd like to have a big effect in education like he is in global health. But I think the amazing thing is when they recruited me on the board of Microsoft, it was 2006, and they wanted someone from tech on the board. But most people competed with Microsoft and were therefore conflicted. And so they kind of went down the list of tech leaders, down and down and down. And eventually, they got to a domestic DVD renter. Okay?
You really believe that?
No, that's the truth.
Okay.
I talked to the recruiter. That's how far they had to go down to get someone who didn't compete with Microsoft and wasn't about to. Okay, and so, and then they called me up, and then I was, of course, flattered, and then did a bunch of interviews, and we hit it off on many different aspects. And then I learned so much from Microsoft. I mean, they're an incredible company. Got to work with Satya a lot there.
Well, on that front, Satya, the current head, has called you a mentor and referenced your humility and humanity. In what ways do you think you helped him early on?
We brought him into Netflix and had him visit with us several days and sign all the NDAs and be, like an executive for a couple days and go to all the meetings and see the rhythms and how we operate. And he really studied our culture. Some parts of which he thought would be great at Microsoft and others not. But, it's sort of, that's a good development experience for someone.
You were on the Meta board for 8 years. In what ways did you work with Zuckerberg?
Well, lots of different ways. When I got on that board, that was before they went public. So it was very early days, and Facebook was cute, yeah. And there was no Instagram at that point. And then the company grew up during that time. What I loved is Mark was always fantastically direct and honest with the board.
How so?
Well, he was just always told us what was going on. You didn't feel like you have to play 20 questions to try to figure things out. So he would say what was going well and what wasn't, and in a very candid and frankly secure way. That was an incredible board in that dimension too.
Independent of the Peter Thiel stuff, which I know got publicity, like just having the opportunity to be on that board for 8 years, what was kind of the toughest part of that experience?
Well, I would say to see Facebook's brand fall.
How so?
Well, it continued to fall all the way through that time. So that was tough because as hard as the company worked to turn around the fall of the brand, it wasn't very successful. And today it's part of why Meta is good for the company, and Instagram's fantastic, and WhatsApp's fantastic, and Facebook is, and it's on the brand surveys, not well trusted.
How do you handle that when you're in it on the front lines of it?
Well, that's what was hard. It's really for the management team to do. It's not the board's decision of like how to do the tactics. But
now, is that the challenge because you kind of want to roll up your sleeves more?
No, it's not enough. At a day a quarter, there's not enough time for that.
Yeah.
But it's like they would come up with one plan after another to reinforce or strengthen the brand. And despite, again, the brand distaste, both the usage and the monetization continue to increase. And then of course, Mark, really brilliantly got both Instagram and WhatsApp in, and then has built the company around those brands.
Was there a point where you started to see the light at the end of the tunnel?
Not on the Facebook brand,
Okay.
which is the one that I had grown up with. Okay, to young people today, they're
Right.
like, what's that?